What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Lefty the Great from the No Name RC podcast. And over to my virtual left, right is our newly established 10 scale chairman, the briefcase.
I've just been given that title right now, so I'm going to take it. So, hey guys, it's me, Will, here from the UK. So, we're back with another episode.
You're moving up the corporate ladder of the NNRC structure very fast there, Will. Chairman.
So I've got a promotion, so.
Promotion. More responsibility. All right, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. I know you haven't seen us much. We've kind of been on a hiatus over the New Year's and Christmas holidays, but we are back. If you're watching this, we've already recorded a couple of podcasts, but we're also doing something new here, which is specific to the INS 15 Indoor National Races by JConcepts. As you guys know, I'm heavily involved in the Elite RC Productions team, Danny Paz and Lance McDonald and all of that. So they are doing the coverage for the upcoming INS, the INS this year. And I'll be going to a couple of the races. I'll go to the first one up here in trackside. So I came up with this idea about doing specific shows catering to this race. Why? Because it's a series. We get to build up storylines into each race. And then hopefully we get a nice, exciting finale, or near finale at the end with plenty of storylines, all the drama, all the action, and all that went in. That's what makes a series great. So I had a talk with Jason Ruona. I pitched it to him. That ended up with JConcepts coming on board and doing it, also coming on board with the No Name RC podcast, which was great. But this is something separate from the No Name RC podcast. Yes, it's part of the No Name RC podcast, but this is to promote this race, promote the sponsors of this race, and try to do something a little bit cooler and a little bit different in RC and you'll see where this goes, and hype up this awesome series that's been going on for, I assume, 15 years. We're going to talk to Jason about that. But before we go on any further, I want to say a big thank you to JConcepts for all their support. A-Main Hobbies, Hobby Wing, Schumacher, Exalt, Team Associated, Reedy, and of course, the Elite RC Productions team. Will, you are the 10 scale chairman. This is your specialty. You are like the one that's really following the INS. I know 10 scale is what you love. Your great vlog that you did from your workshop journey. A lot of people were really curious about the cork surface. We'll have you on the podcast and talk about that more. But maybe you can tell us a little bit to people listening what the INS kind of means to you as a 10 scale fan and first and foremost.
Yes. So from what I understand, the INS is, I guess to me, I'm saying it's the Europeans, kind of like a big national racing series in the US. So it's kind of I guess best way to describe it's like kind of the EOS, but in the States. And they traditionally, I believe it used to be just a dirt only series. So they'll go all over the country and do a few races throughout the season. And now they have, I think then they went through a year where they kind of split it up, where there was they had the dirt sort of, the dirt side of it, and then they had a carpet kind of side to it. But it looks like now, I believe in the last year or two, or maybe this season, they've started to combine it now. So they got like some races where it's like just dirt, and they got some races that it's just on carpet. But even in Europe, it's a series that I can see like is getting bigger and bigger, and we see obviously more race coverage about it even over here. And in America, it seems like it's one of probably the only really national series, I guess, that America has. I'm sure Jason will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's definitely a race I would absolutely love to go to. But I mean, it looks like a great show that those guys are putting on. It just seems getting bigger and bigger every year with all the top guys going and new stock guys coming up, and obviously loads of classes in between to keep it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this as I've now started to geek out more on 10 scale, becoming an avid stock fan. I used to be their biggest critic, and getting to know these guys, the competition level and the mod and the level and mod, especially. But I haven't really experienced 10 scale with the Europeans yet. So that's something I need to get under my belt. You can't see him, but he's here. We've always asked for a producer. We got a guy. We got one. We think this is his first time doing this. He's the invisible eye watching us, Mr. Ty Trailer. We haven't got a nickname for him yet. I met this guy at the Florida Carpet Championships. He's been. This is his first show. He's gonna be like my Jamie or my Tits from Pope MX. So, what's up, Ty? Say what's up to everybody, because you will hear him pop in from now and then throughout the show.
Hey, how's it going? Excited to be here. A little nervous for my first time though.
I can hear it in his voice. I can hear it in your voice. You'll be all right, Ty. You'll be all right. He's also an avid 10 scale racer. He's up there in the Pacific Northwest, runs for X-Ray, and good dude. avid RC fan. Thank you for your help, Ty. Thank you for your help. All right, I think we should stop jibber jabbering. Let's get the man himself in here and have a chat with him and get talking on this INS 15 preview race recap. Let's go.
Let's get him in.
What's up, J-Ro?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Just a day here at work and slipping in this podcast, to the normal day.
Are you just back from the Chili Bowl?
I did actually not go to the Chili Bowl.
Okay.
I was scheduled to go with Allison, but we kind of decided let's just stay back. Let's get more work done. Tyler was there. We had a booth there. Tyler Hooks was there representing, was helping us with some photos and coverage. And he also raced and did a great job himself.
Yeah, big race, huge race. I watched absolutely none of it. I kind of was busy myself this weekend. As we're recording this, it just happened. I have no idea who won. I know Ryan Stiles Harris was there, and some NASCAR guys were racing as well, I believe.
I watched quite a bit, and I've been there, I think, 4 times over the course of the last few years. I've been there 4 times, and it is a big show. It's a big event. Not to get too sidetracked here, but I think it is a great event. It does exactly what Scotty wants. It's a sort of the world championship, I guess, of dirt oval racing is what he's been trying to call it. They actually even gave Nathan Dean, who won the overall in the Invitational, it actually said the world champion of dirt oval, which I thought was kind of interesting and neat. But Nathan is a guy that's won the race several times when they didn't have an invite. But he won the overall. Robert Chapman got second, and Tyler Hooks got third in the invite. So, then there's a bunch of classes. It's a whole nother show, a whole nother thing. But 600 entries, I think they had on the main RC Chili Bowl, and they had an event the week before that was 100 entries. That was kind of for a warm-up type of an event, but it was really mostly originally for the Traxxas slash modifies or the Mud Boss class. Scotty made almost a special event for those. In the end, they added some other classes to fill it up a little bit more. But I think he's looking to do that 2-week run in the future with more Traxxas dirt oval cars coming out. They announced a late model conversion, so he's looking to kind of make it a 2-week thing. But it focuses on 2 different kind of racer, really.
Yeah, awesome. I've tried dirt oval once, and I like it. I love. It's definitely something you need to participate in. I guess if I was really into it, I'd be watching it. But I love anything RC, so definitely want to try it. Will, I know going around in left circles on dirt is not an English thing, so I know you're very silent on that one.
Yeah, I guess like saying as a really arrogant British fan, I don't really understand it. Like I spoke to Scotty about it at ETS when I was doing some filming there, and I asked him about it, and then obviously he's done it, and he says there's a lot more to it, which I can see why. But I guess like I'm just saying this from my own thoughts. But I guess because you're all just going in a circle and you're all like really close, maybe the competition's a bit more fun.
It's not easy,
maybe
dude.
You guys can, yeah. Like I'm saying this like with no expectation, but I'm sure also you two have way more experience than I will on it.
It's a big race, big race. I think Raw should make it a nationals at some point too. All right, but we're here to talk about what we all love, and that's 8 skill. See, look, I'm in 8 skill mode. In 10 skill, pump the brakes.
We can talk about 8 skill,
but it's not. We can. We're going to probably have to have you on for another chance to talk about that. We're here to talk about the INS 15. I assume this is the 15th iteration of this event. Get briefly, how did it start? Like, I'm all about series. So how did it start with the INS?
Well, our first race we ever did was a 2007 JConcepts Clash, which that was at Lake Park. We combined nitro, electric, and 8 scale and 10 scale in one race. So that was the idea, is where the powers explode is what we called it. So we did a 2007. We started that event. Then we added some other individual events. We had one called the Rage, JConcepts Rage. We had JConcepts Wave. We had the Northeast Championship at RC Excitement. And as we were going through first couple years, we were doing these events. They were all individual and they had these names. We kind of got to the point, Brent and I had discussed it. Brent Telke from Associated, we had discussed, because he was making a lot of these events with me as well. And, we discussed, well, why don't we just kind of change the name of these things and, turn it into a series. And, people don't have to run in it if they don't want. It's not required that you have to do any of them or one of them or however many you want to do. You can run them individually. You're awarded for the individual races, or if you want to run it as a series, you can be awarded collectively. So we turned our individual events into a series. We pretty much dropped the Clash off of it completely because we were running out of facilities to do nitro or 8 scale and 10 scale together. We did some at Lake Park, Coral Springs, back to Lake Park. We went to Flowood in Mississippi, which was the indoor track there, which I think was actually a great situation for the race in Mississippi. But, it was a lot of commitment for us to do it. At the time, we brought in Red RC. We brought in Live RC. We did all kinds of different stuff. We had, the first time we ran the first Clash, we went live. I think we're the first Florida event to ever go live on Live RC in 2007. So we did a lot of things in those days. We did a lot of new things, innovations to our area here, and so we kind of decided, all right, well, let's drop the Clash because we're running out of facilities to kind of host this type of an event without without putting a lot of effort into the track build. So we went with all indoor dirt events. We named them, winter, spring, summer, fall events, and we've been following that now for 15 years. I think the first winners, I think Brent won a class, Josh Newman won a class, Tanner Denny won a class. I'm sure I've won several classes over the years in the beginning. And then over time, we've had a lot of great racers come in and out of the series. I know Mayfield's run it a bunch. Ty Tessman has ran it. Obviously Spencer and Dakota. And, it just, the list goes on and on. Those are just the winners, really. So we've had a lot of great racers over the years. It's been sort of a building block for racers that are kind of looking to turn the corner. They're 17.5, 13.5 racers wanting to see where they stack up. They would come in and run the series, see how they could do or what they could do against, everyone's local hot shoe at that particular location. And then, they can decide if they, where their skills are at and if they want to move up to mod. We've had drivers like Spencer start on our series, and I think his first race he ran was 2013. He came with Ryan in Texas. We had a race there at Mike's Hobby Shop, different Mike's Hobby Shop than the one that's there in Houston. This was in Dallas. And, then he won the Worlds 2 years later. So, so he was running stock at his first ever race. And, you can see how this is progressing, and it's giving drivers the ability to dial into different tracks, get accustomed to traveling. And it's been sort of a learning opportunity for people and racers that want to improve their skills, or they just want to race a big race at their home track. So it's been quietly successful for 15 years as individual races and the points. We've been keeping track of the points since that time. And like I said, getting involved here with Elite and yourself, we're just trying to add some more hype to the points, because I think we're at a time in this 10 scale racing where, especially with, you and the podcast, where you can share some of the limelight here with the 8 scale results and what's kind of going on a world stage and a national stage. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, coming into this, I wasn't always the biggest fan of 10 scale. And then every time I'd see you at the race, you'd be like, 10 scale pays the skills. And as I've gotten, I think it started with Masters. I went to Masters. I kind of was hooked there. Then I went to Florida Carpet Championships, and I was like, okay, I get it. I started to understand the whole thing with spec and stock and the competition and the drama that can possibly happen within it, which really excited me. I'm not going to lie. But it's the amount of money and the amount of money and pressure put in the stock class is amazing. Like, I don't think Will can fully understand it because he's more of the European. I rerun mod and rerun 2-wheel drive, and then occasionally run 4-wheel drive, which is fine. But I love that minor leagues, I want to call it. That's the best way I could describe it. Some people call it 250 class of RC, which is stock, which we don't have in 8 scale because there's actually something mechanically stopping you. Whereas in 8 scale, we have imaginary lines where you're sportsman, intermediate, and whatnot. And then we have big arguments about who should be in that class or not. But with stock, there's an actual physical difference. But I've also learned to look at stock as a individual class, just like e-buggy would be, truggy would be, or now e-truggy in the 8 scale world, or nitro buggy. I no longer, yes, it's a stepping stone, right? Yes, it should be a stepping stone to get to mod. If a professional RC car driver is what you want to be, then yes, mod should be where you're going to be at that point. But I want to say there's almost professional stock drivers as well. And there's always kind of been those guys that have always been really fast in stock, and that's where they stay. But that's kind of how it has to be. It shouldn't be easy at the top. It should be hard. You should have to go in there, take your lumps, get beat, battle it out, and duke it all out at that race. And that makes you a better racer until you can beat that guy. When you start beating that gatekeeper consistently, then if you want to go to mod, that's where you go. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to me, I've always had a, romanticize about these different classes, and I like every one of them at one point or another, whether it's modified, whether it's 17.5, 13.5, or going back to 8 scale. They're all very different, and but they're all RC cars at the end of the day. The reason I've always liked 10 scale, because of course that's where I started, so you kind of you're kind of partial to, I think, where you started. But what I like about 10 scale, especially in the days that I guess I raced in, which was the 90s, early 2000s, you really had to become a great driver with control to drive and accomplish things with these cars, because there was limitations with the car. There was limitations with 2-wheel drive. There was, in those days, there was also, you had to fear breakage and other different things. So you learn to have this master of control for a short, these 5-minute bursts. And, some of these races we get a little bit longer, 8 minutes, but, you learn to master the control of these 10 scale cars. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is all that stuff transitions or translates to 8 scale. So none of this, no matter where you want to go, it's not going to hurt you. In 8 scale, I think the tendency is to drive, especially the drivers that are starting or entry level, they're more wild, and there's not as much fear for the cars having trouble, breakage. They're 4-wheel drive, they're durable. They all have the same amount of power, as you talked about before. So you don't have as much fear for the equipment. You don't have fear as much of the traction, and you're not worried about the crashes. You'll jump pipes. What we watch at these race time entertainment races, I mean, everybody's all over the place. And 10 scale, you have to approach it differently. But if you master 10 scale and you go over to 8 scale, all that stuff transitions, and now you're just a precise 8 scale driver that can start wicking it up a notch. And I think that's where your skills really start to shine. I mean, you think about all these racers that are very good or were good a few years ago and transitioning to now, they're also great 10 scale racers. So it all kind of intertwines at one point or another. And so, with these events, it's different having the class breakdown by power versus the skill level. Personally, I don't really like the way it's done in 10 scale. I wish we could sort of at some point revamp it just a little bit, but I don't think we're quite all the way there to revamping it quite yet. But we're getting there.
Okay. Will, you're the 10 scale chairman. Any questions before or any thoughts about what Jason said before we move on?
I mean, I agree with absolutely everything Jason's just said. Definitely with the 10 scale side, and where if you can essentially drive 10 scale, I think it really translates to everything else. I guess I don't know if this is a question more for later, but I guess coming back to 8 scale, would there ever be a thought to kind of do something similar, like for 8 scale as like an INS sort of series, or is that kind of there's so much going on already throughout the year with different race events like the race time events? Is there any space for it?
It segues right into vision and future. There we go. Perfect. You segued without segueing.
Well, yeah, I think that, I would say 3 different times we've set a schedule to have 8 scale, an 8 scale series. But we've never started it. But I'd say 3 different times we've contacted locations, we've set some beginning, kind of set the groundwork, and we've never started it. And I think it mostly comes down to, at the end, we always go, well, do I want to go to all these races? Who's going to go to all these races? And which racers do we want to recruit to try to go? And that's kind of where we stopped, because one, there's already a lot of events to do. So I hate adding events. You mentioned before that we used to have a dirt indoor series, and then we had a carpet and astro series, and we kind of combined them. So we had 9 events. We went to 5, which was mostly to clear the calendar. We did it because we felt like we had all these races at the end of the year that didn't exist when we started 15 years ago. Masters, the Florida Carpet Champs, all these events did not exist when we started, and we wanted to have some breathing room in there for us and everybody else. So we could make these bigger, and everybody could have their shot at it, having their big event. And doing the 8 scale, I think we would, it would be a little bit of a different, we wouldn't do the, kind of the big free for all, try to get 900 entries. It would be a different style of event, but that was kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Was we had some dates, we had some locations, we had a general guideline of what we were going to do, but I just don't think that we're quite ready yet. We need some more permanent people that can do some of this stuff with us, and we need to see where a lot of these races go. People are adding them all the time because this is getting into a whole nother subject, but we have races that are put on to try to make money, and by promoters and organizers. We have races that are put on by tracks and hobby stores, which I think tend to be a little bit better for the community, in a sense that it is going to a track, it is going to a hobby store who needs that over and over. So that's why the series is the way we kind of have it constructed, is it goes through these tracks and hobby stores, because I think it ultimately we want them to have a great experience and make some money from it.
Do you have some criteria for these tracks to meet before picking them?
It's really kind of after we have a guideline that we use.
Mm-hmm.
We have a packet that we go with the track, and when we started this, it was on recommendations. We had John Pyant, who was with us at the time. He's like, let's do a race at Smack Track in Missouri. And he's like, they have big races during the winter all the time. And he's like, I know it'll do well. That's where we started. We started there as our first stop, and it was never a disappointment. We always had a big turnout there. And so it was a lot of recommendations. And I think that's kind of what's gone on over the course of time. We've had races as far apart as Florida and Tacoma, going up to, so we've had, races that far apart in on our schedule, on our calendar. The last couple of years, they've been a little bit more nested here in the Midwest. And there's been some positives to that, having them in a similar general area where people can drive and run the series. So what we're talking about is possibly moving these as a group. So that when you are wanting to do this series, it's a little easier for you to do all of them. So it is a national series, but I think we've seen some success in having them sort of in a, kind of a general area
where people can get to it within, like, it's certain places in America where everybody's 3 to 4 hours away.
Yeah.
All feasible.
Yeah. And, I think if you look at where the Roar Nationals are this year, they were all tracks that, we had a race at first. We had a race at Hoosier. That was a recommendation by Brian Dunbar. We went to Hoosier. It's been fabulous. They've grown to
immensely.
Maybe one of, if not the most popular 10-scale track in the country. Obviously, Island Speedway has got the Carpet Nationals this year. We went there first on another recommendation from someone. And it's almost like it's this hidden gem that's been great for carpet. So, we're trying to help, and we're trying to promote these events and the tracks, and you can see it is trickling out a little bit, and it's allowing them to kind of branch out, have their own events, have their own racers that travel the series. And I think it's been good overall from that side of things.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of on the same wavelength here. Like, my vision is, I've always been a proponent of series, right? We've done our own virtual series. We've done all of that because I like, obviously, Will, you live in the UK. You have a series for 10 scale, 8 scale, truggy, and e-buggy even. Europe's a little bit different. That's a whole nother topic on all of that. Anyway, that comes down to organizations and associations and stuff like that. So a series is great. I mean, we see successful. I always bring up Lance's series, the Florida RC Championships in Florida, very successful series. He goes there with a full bang, with everything. You know how Lance goes. Everything. He doesn't. You don't have to bring anything. He takes it all there. So, and people, what I noticed was that people were really serious about the points there. Like, the average racers were very serious about the points. They took it seriously, and that's what attracted me to it. My vision, I guess, for the INS, and I guess for yours, was I don't know how it is because I'm not experienced in it, but my vision would be that, like, everybody is gunning for that. Like, at that final race, we see everybody that can make it to that race makes it to that race, and everybody in mod, and that can be there in mod, and that can be there in stock, and then just lots of storylines going into it, because that's what makes things exciting, right? That's why we follow sports, we follow motorsports and all that type of stuff. Yes, one-off races are great. Don't get me wrong. I love World Championships. I love Royal Nationals and European Championships. But a series is great. And I think if we can start showing how successful series can be and how beneficiary they can be for the hobby/sport, for the people involved, then maybe more people will get involved in them manufacturer-wise, and we could get some more funding for these type of things and make it better.
Yeah, I mean, when I started racing, the first thing I ever competed in was a club point series. And that right away, I mean, I was probably racing 3 or 4 weeks. And right away, you could see that the drivers respond to it because they like a fresh start. And that's what a point series gives you, is an opportunity for a fresh start. And it always seems that everybody does the math in their benefit the entire series. And, it's always like, well, if I TQ and win the last race, I can do this. And so I think the series gives racers hope. It gives them something to follow. And it also gives them second chances when you have drops and things like that. So there's all these scenarios that you can play out as a racer. And I think that that's what really adds, a lot of fun to people doing those things. Is there's always that element of what if this happens, what if that happens, and then somehow it moves them into contention for a win or something like that. And that's where the series, I think, are always successful, because of those same type of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, like you said, Will, it kind of is the EOS, and now the only EOS is one race, a series that's one race. I don't understand how that works, but maybe I maybe we can see how we can get some. Like, I would love to. I'm always about getting the European and Americans to drive as much as possible. Whenever they get together, I love it because everybody's level seems to go up a notch. So I would love to see some of that happen at some point. So it's lots of things that can happen. I know you've expressed interest in coming over as a European to participate in this race as well. Will, I assume you'd want to do dirt because you do enough carpet over there.
Oh yeah, 100%. It would. I definitely want to do dirt. Ever since I've been a master, like I fully get it now. Even though the whole tire prep thing is a whole thing in itself, like it's so much fun. But I kind of had a kind of into linking the European stuff. I guess Jason. I guess now you have a few European drivers like Michael. Like, was there an opportunity to maybe bring someone like him to the US to maybe, or at least for the carpet style races?
We have had some European racers. We had some Japanese racers come in and run the INS a few times because it was convenient. The one time we had, it was convenient because it was just a couple weeks after the Reedy race, so a couple drivers came and ran our first INS, and then we had a carpet race that was in Minnesota, and we had Jona Hatanen come in for that, and he ran with us there before, and so we've had a little bit of this. We've had a little bit of flair over the years with kind of mixing up the talent pool, and I think we've had some success with it. I think more racers could do it. It's just about, are they available? Do they want to do it? Do they want to commit to the series? Or, I think and that comes down to if you're talking about Orlowski and stuff like that, I think it really comes down to if the Schumacher and others want him to do that type of racing. Right now, he's been doing a lot of touring car. He's been having a lot of success with that. But, at some point, he's going to have to make the switch this year, get back into sort of off-road mode because we got a Worlds. And I think that, we'll see is, maybe some racers are going to want to come over just to kind of keep their skills sharp, and maybe do a couple races like that and just kind of stay active.
Yeah, get some dirt practice. Cool.
I always hesitate a little bit. We try to, because the more of these great drivers that you add to the mix, the competition level goes up. Like Lefty's saying, he loves that peak out of where everybody is pushing hard. But it's been my experience, the more that you add, the drama level also goes up, which is good for Lefty. But from my perspective, it gets harder because drivers start fighting with each other when the stakes get higher, and so we have to be there for 3 days. We have these qualifiers, you have the triple main events, and not everybody can win, and not everybody's happy about that. So we have some personality clashes at these events from time to time. And the more of these drivers you add, there's the potential for that kind of blow up is there. So we try to balance. We try to have a good time. We try to get in and out of these events. We try not to make them too long. We're talking, with Lance and everybody about the schedule, trying to keep everybody from going in too early. We want the practice to be just a little bit shorter for guys that, for the racers and the teams that, don't want to fly on Tuesday. You fly, Wednesday or Thursday is, what we're trying to arrive at. But yeah, the more of these racers that you add, that competition level, and then ultimately that potential for a blow up gets bigger and bigger. And so I don't, because we've had that, and Lefty would be loving some of these races we've had in the past, with Mayfield and Spencer and Brock Champlin, and all these guys have had their fair share of run-ins with different things, and today would be really, really big news in this in this situation. We were doing this podcast.
Mhm.
We'd be talking the stuff that has happened in the past.
We'd be talking about it.
We would be talking about it because it was really big stuff. But so it's been my experience that you add a lot of these drivers to it. It's great because you get some serious star power. But then the egos, and then there's some clashing that starts to happen, and then you have to be prepared to make rulings one way or another. You got to be prepared to separate these drivers. We've had Spencer and Brock mounting their tires together before. We've had people stand on each ends of the driver's stand, so there's the racers aren't in each other's faces, and we've kind of had all these things happen with not everybody there. We've had maybe half of the top guys, so we want it to still be fun. We want it to be a somewhat relaxed event, but when we do this type of thing and the stakes kind of build, it has a tendency to boil over at times. So it's keeping that atmosphere right is important to me, and being able to be racing at an elite level is important, but keeping that balance, because we do have novices, we have beginner racers, we have 13.5 guys, we have 21.5, so we want them to have a great experience. And so it's a series for everybody, with all these different classes. And maybe last year I think was the most attended racers we had participate in the whole series. We had great 21.5 participation, 17.5, and we want to keep that because I think that's ultimately important to the numbers. It's important to the hobby stores that are there and trying to make a living having and hosting these events.
Is this a cap race or is it open?
No, what we do is we try to be around 300 to 350.
Okay.
Because we found, going more than that, it's hard to finish.
Match. Yeah. I'm sure if Lance can find some time, he's going to find it because he always does. He does a good job of getting us out of there.
Yeah. And, he kind of takes pride in being ahead of schedule. And, that's really important. And, that's why we wanted to introduce these other elements. And, the other thing that's always been tough for us are the points, keeping track of the points, because we ran the races were ran by the home track and all the results were on separate computers. And then we had to take, everybody's finishes, convert it to points, and then add them together. And inevitably you don't get them all perfect. And, you have to change something or swap awards, and, it's fun. So,
that's not the word I would describe.
It's been fun on our end. So, I think adding that side to it is what we're hoping to improve.
Absolutely. I know all about that too. All about that. All right. I think we're going to move right into silly season. I know we're going to talk about some past results, but the topic is hot. Silly season is amongst us. We haven't really talked about it since it happened. We just had the clash. We're still seeing silly season moves up to this day. I think Jonah Wilson left Associated yesterday on AC. That shocked me, completely shocked me. But I said this, I had a video planned about it. I haven't made it, but I feel that 10 scale won silly season this year. I think there was a lot of moves made in the 10 scale world, big moves, some bigger than others. Obviously, probably the biggest one was Dakota Fend going to X-Ray. But I think we have to kind of start it off with the elephant in the room. And that is pretty much, we've talked about it countless times. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Horizon pretty much disbanding their pro paid team. We see Dakota Fenn not on the team anymore getting paid. Tater, world champion, not in the team. Now moving on to X-Ray. I understand the logic behind this. I don't agree with it because I believe in pro side of RC wholeheartedly. I guess as best you can, describe how you felt about this move by Horizon.
Do you want mine first or Will's?
Yeah, sure. We've had our opinions. You've said our opinions countless times.
Yeah, I've said mine, so all yours, Jason.
Well, I certainly don't like it for their standpoint. I think it's hard to really put yourself in their shoes, because they have so much more on their plate than just TLR, and we can group in Proline, aka the big brands that were formerly very racing inspired. But it's been over 20 years now that Horizon's owned Losi, Team Losi. It's been, whatever it is, 4 or 5 years that they've owned Proline. A couple of years they've owned AKA. But they also have maybe the largest company in the RC business through distribution and all their own brands. So they have Axial, they have Arma, they have all these different brands that are theirs to manage. And their goal in this business, and look, this is just my opinion. I don't, I'm not Horizon, but when I look at it from the outside looking in, their goals are different than ours are, or that, take any of these, Mugen or Techno or whoever you want to fill in the blanks. Their goals are different, and their goals are to beat and be bigger than Traxxas. They want to be in RC surface category. Their competition, the way they look at it, is it's not on the track. It's not Dakota winning races. Their competition is who are the other manufacturers selling more or as many vehicles as them in RC surface competition, or bashing, or entry-level vehicles. That is their competition. They don't go to the internet as a group or collectively and say, "Oh, who won last week?" That was, did we win? And they look at the numbers. They're looking at the sales numbers. They're saying, okay, well, and again, this is just my opinion, but they're looking at, hey, Traxxas, we know they can sell this. They got these vehicles. This is our competition in these different markets. And they realize for them to grow, they have to be better or bigger or at the same level as the Traxxases and these kind of companies. So that's their competition. That's the way they see it. When they say, hey, if we could be the best racing brand in RC, that's not attractive to them. They look at it and they say, nah, it's still kind of peanuts in comparison to where we want to be. And I think that was the decision. That's the decision is, okay, we're putting a lot of resources into this racing category. Say it costs to have Dakota, to have this team, to travel, to develop the cars on a consistent basis. It costs X amount of money. And then in the end, what are we getting out of it? This is what we get out of it in the end. And they say, well, this is what, this is the kind of money and the kind of investment it costs to do Axial and Arma and all these other brands. And our return, or possible return, you could throw the Losi brand in there, our possible return is much, much greater. And I think that's the way they look at it. And they don't look at it like, man, are we winning or losing on the track? Is our stuff up to par? I think they feel that's all annoying. Like, they're like, why do we have to change this equipment? Why do we have to change this equipment every year? Why do we have to update a 2-wheel drive car every year? We don't want to have a TLR 22, 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, like every other year. Like, we want to make something, we want to promote it, market it, and then sell, as much as we can of it. And when that thing, and then when we decide we want to make a change, we'll make a change to the product, have it updated or a newer version, and then we'll sell like bananas again, and then we'll restart the process. But I think one of the dangerous things that we have in racing, and this applies to all of us up and down the board, is we have a tendency to never be happy with anything that we have, and it's never good enough, and you're constantly changing it, and you're constantly involving it, and that costs money to do that, and it limits how much people want to carry your product. a hobby store or whatever, you don't want to carry, say you get into one of these generations of these vehicles, say you're late, just say for instance, you're the B7 and, you get, if you're a store or whatever, you get late, you're late in the development cycle, you buy these cars, you buy all the parts, and then there's a B8 in 2 months, and then all your stuff that you just bought is no good. And that's the genius behind Traxxas. The genius with them is they have these vehicles, their parts kind of tied together between these platforms. We all joke as racers that, hey, when I was racing in the 90s, the items they use on the Traxxas cars were part of their cars in the 90s. They're still using them on the Slash. Sure, they've over the last couple of years, they've made changes, but that's how they make money. They make money by doing this stuff once, reusing it, recycling it through the product line. You throw a new body, a new look on it, and you continue to sell it and make more money. And that's where the business of RC is different from the racing side of RC. And the racing side of RC, you're just constantly throwing money at it. It's just all the time because it's never good enough. You're always like, oh, we need to change this, we need to change that. The racers are never happy. They always blame their performance on the equipment, and it's over and over again. And it's very costly to do that. And I think that's what Horizon sees as a process that is just so costly that unless that's the only thing that you do, it's hard to stay on top of it, and it's hard to make money doing it. A la, a couple of the companies in the business that operate solely on race product, maybe like an X-Ray, they are completely set up to only make these cars once a year. They revise it, they make another batch, they're out, and they're onto a new one, and they only concentrate on that. And I think that's the danger of being in the racing side of things, that everybody has to go through that wants to be a part of this. And sure, it's great, it's fun, the racing and the competition, but it's very costly. And I think that's ultimately what Horizon doesn't like about it. And I don't know if they'll change their mind. They might not change their mind. I think they'll stay. I think they'll probably continue to move further back into those.
I agree.
The Homer Simpson thing, because they don't see the benefit. They didn't fall in love with it in the 80s like Gil Losi Jr. or me or whoever. It's a business, and that's how they have to run it for them. Do I think it's probably potentially a mistake? I do. I think it's potentially a mistake because there are some things to prove there. There are some things that you could trickle over to your lineup as they have been doing. And I don't think that when you measure some of those costs, at times you completely do them justice, because say you have this 22 platform, well, you converted it to a mini, you converted it to a micro, so there are some offshoots of your race product that provide you that initial platform. So I think that it might be a mistake to some extent if you don't still utilize it in a certain way. But I'm disappointed because I think that rivalry, the Associated Losi rivalry, is very legendary in RC, and we really aren't going to have it anymore. And that's and really all they did is right now Horizon essentially handed X-Ray or Schumacher number 2 in the business in the USA.
Pretty much.
They just said, hey, here it is. We don't like it. You can have it. And they just
pretty much. I said this. I said that AE won the war overall. They won the whole war because they outlasted them. But then they won the war just to fight off another opponent, because X-Ray is like on it right now. And I saw that at the Carpet Championships, and then I saw pictures from the Clash. So they're in 8 scale yet in USA, but in 10 scale, I was like, okay, so there goes TLR. Here comes X-Ray and Schumacher. I would say third now, and I would be very surprised if Mugen should be really trying to get their 4-wheel drive platform going, because they could possibly get into that 4th spot, which I'm sorry, it's going to be abandoned by TLR. I mean, Hunter King's my boy. He's now bumped up to #1 TLR driver. He's good, but and no offense to anybody that drives TLR, but it comes down to this, and I've said it before. You've had Dakota Fenn or Taylor Sontag win you guys races, and other drivers win you races for many, many years. But now you're about to see how it feels to be a brand that doesn't have a top racer that can win races anymore. And it's not the best feeling in the world. How do I know? Because I've done it before, right? And I just feel I understand everything that you just said about it. I get it 100%. 100%. But it doesn't mean I agree with it. I think the RPP program's great. I think Hook It program's great. How they explain it to me, I think they have some really good things. But for a company the size of Horizon and the amount of dollars and money they have behind them, they could do such great things for racing if they wanted to put the effort into it. So, but they don't, because it doesn't make sense to them financially. So it is what it is. But that made it for a very exciting silly season. Real, I know you've had your rant. Did you want to have a quick rant before we moved on? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I basically said everything in the last episode, but I mean, I definitely agree with Jason and what he says, and that all, of course, I guess from the numbers side, I guess with the world how it is now, I guess you could argue maybe it's tighter. But the thing that kind of, I guess, frustrates me a little bit is sometimes the race, especially a company like Horizon, when they have like the hobby and the race, the hobby and the basher side of products like Axial and Armor and just like the low-C stuff, was like I guess the race stuff could kind of be seen almost as don't say a marketing channel, but like when I got into racing, when I got into RC in general, like I got into it just by seeing racing videos and stuff, and I saw, oh, Horizon, they have like a ready-to-run brand, so maybe that's like a segue for me to get into racing. And then eventually, obviously, I had a few of their cars, and eventually I finally got into one of their race cars. So it was kind of like the building blocks into getting racing, and I feel like they've lost that, and I think it's a bit disappointing because you always see buying products like at the highest end. Like when you buy an iPhone, you see someone that uses all the major features on it, but obviously people just use it just for the bottom side. But I guess it kind of links towards the whole situation here at Horizon. I
don't really have much more to say about Horizon. We're going to move on from that. We're going to talk about what's happening now with the present. And that's Dakota Fenn, the biggest move of X-Ray besides Coelho leaving. I got to see him in person this past weekend, a weekend ago at SIC. He seems confident. He looked confident at the Clash. We always said, what's going to happen when this guy gets on a car with a team that really, in the latest years that wants to go racing. I had a whole video planned about how Dakota, if he would have won four-wheel drive at the Clash,
you'd have dropped.
If you'd have done that, I had a whole video plan on how the whole RC world has just been put on notice that Dakota Fenn is about to kick ass and take names. But he looks great out there. I guess we got to talk about that.
One thing quickly. I was going to say is, as a racer, Spencer Rivkin came in there and he kind of put a nice little block on that weekend as Dakota was ruling. He had that race. He had the chatter going. He had the whole thing going. He had, you planning a specific podcast, and Spencer came in and
ruined all those plans.
He did. He that's kind of hats off to him because he did his job. He's like, you know what? I'm hearing all the hype too. I'm seeing it all, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a good ending to this race and show that I'm still here. We're still around and we're doing well. And from a conversational and from a drama perspective, or for this podcast type of stuff, it was a great ability that he showed there to kind of rise to the occasion, got one done, and kind of I'm not going to say he rained on the parade a little bit, but he did kind of rain on the parade a little bit. And it was good that Associated had somebody that could do that, because otherwise you would feel like it was falling in a little bit on you if you're a big fan, right? If you're a big fan of one brand over another, you're like, he kind of saved the day for you. And I guess that's why somebody like that at that level gets paid, because they're able to do that. And it changed sort of the complexity and how the weekend was kind of going.
I 100% agree. I had it in my notes. Because Rifkin was on the back foot. He was on the back foot on qualifying. He didn't qualify as he wanted. Like you said, all the hype was around Dakota. And I'm going to tell you, Will, when I was at Carpet Championships and I saw the amount of X-ray cars there, I was dumbfounded. I was like, wow. Like, there were so many guys driving there. I was like, they're rivaling Associated. And from what I heard, the clash was very similar. Like, lots of X-ray drivers. So, like I said, TLR may have gone the way of the dodo, but here's big bad X-ray coming over to say, hey, we're here to race. But I wanted to talk. What was your thoughts on Fend and this transition to X-ray, and what do you think it's going to be for him like in the future?
You want mine or
yeah,
Will's?
you?
Well, my experience has been when you hand one of these guys that are at this level a different car, there's not a big adjustment period. They usually hit the ground running and they pick up right where they left off, essentially, if not better. Then my experience with Ryan, Dakota, any of these really, really top guys that switch brands, you can see why they're one of the top guys right away. It's, I say it all the time. It's like, okay, so Mayfield won with the Associated, the Losi, the Mugen, and the Techno. There's one common denominator here, right? And so when I saw Dakota, he didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't look like he was not used to working on the cars. He inherited or picked up a great pit guy, right-hand man, and Paul Ciccarello, which I'm going to kind of say that's one of the biggest wins for him, is he's getting another person that is very dedicated to RC, has spent the majority of his life doing it also, and wants to prove that he can help somebody get to the top. And that might be one of the hidden, the best hidden things about this deal for Dakota, is he's picking up somebody that can help him in some of these ways that a Barry Baker did, or Kevin Gahan before, a couple team managers ago, and that type of thing. So I think that it's just been my experience that these guys, you pick up a car, they're experts at driving, they're experts at racing, and once they get a couple things under their belt and that confidence starts growing, that's when you start to see the good results. And they start off on fire, but then I think what happens is if your sponsors, say it's an X-ray, they really start believing in you. They're like, wow, this guy is the real deal. Then they start investing more time in you, more, research and development on different things. And maybe this is what gets a driver like a Dakota over the top in terms of having a company that's willing to kind of go the extra step that maybe he didn't have before. That's not to say that TLR didn't. He had new parts, new cars. I mean, he had it all. But in this situation, you really have to capitalize, strike when the iron's hot. And if the racer's hot, he's at the right age point for this, and you're an X-ray, you got to throw everything at him that you can. And maybe that's the benefit that's going to happen here is it's their time to try to capture that number 2 position in the USA, at least in terms of sales behind Associated. And can they give that number 1 a run, which is the Associated? And where does Schumacher fit in? Because one of the downsides is they lost Tom Rinnernick, who, in my opinion, was doing a great job promoting the X-Ray brand. I think he's responsible for a ton of these cars we're seeing at the Clash of Champions, at the carpet race. I know when I go to Omaha, there was a ton of X-Ray cars there too. His influence was massive. So he was a guy that could get it done on the track. Albeit Dakota has all the stats. He has these big wins. But Tom was getting a good job done on the track, and he was getting a good job done in the pits and influencing people. So they did lose that. They gained gained Dakota, but they lost. They lost Tom, and Tom went to Schumacher and just won his first race with the Schumacher.
Did he?
Had a race in Missouri. They had a race there. He was racing, Chase Lemieux and the other guys that have made a couple moves. And so he got his first win with the Schumacher. So we'll see if his confidence can grow a little bit and start having that influence with the Schumacher. Brand.
He had a very good FCC. Very good FCC.
Yeah.
Tom. I like Tom a lot. Very nice. I kind of felt this. Sorry, Phil. I kind of felt the same way when I saw him leave X-Ray. I knew it was going to happen. And I felt kind of like he's been there since kind of Ty left. And it's been kind of him and Chase kind of represented the brand. Bill, real quick, your thoughts on Fenn going over to X-Ray? You're a little bit more familiar with X-Ray because you see it quite more often over there in Europe. It's a big brand over there. You also picked up Lee Martin for X-Ray this year over there as well, too. So X-Ray making a push on both continents.
Yeah, I'll basically echo exactly what both of you two said. I think it's good now that he has a lot more support, like factory support, I would assume, and he has obviously Jason will know probably more than me, but I think he's had a number of mechanics over time. Whether I don't know why they would change. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think to have Paul, I don't know the guy, but I've heard that he's a really good pit guy in the States, and he does a lot for X-Ray. So I definitely think this year he's really gonna kill it. But it should be an exciting one.
I wouldn't be. I'm excited. He looked confident. He looked very confident and comfortable at SIC. Let's talk about some of the other picks that X-Ray picked up. Obviously, they picked up Tater. Kind of in limbo. Tater, everybody says he's going to suffer from the world champion curse. He hasn't really kind of done anything since then, but there he is. He's on X-Ray with his teammate Tater. Sorry, Fenn. It looks weird seeing these guys in blue. Schimmel. So I have this in my notes for Clash of Champions, but I gotta say it. I said on the podcast a couple of weeks, I've said it a couple of times, that I thought that Schimmel should go back on to stock because I think he's a great stock racer, and I love watching race stock. And then first race on the X-Ray, he gets where did I have it heard?
Well, he won Scotty's race in two-wheel mod.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, the last 10 scale race of the year.
Mm-hmm.
It was Scotty's race.
Cleveland.
The U.S. Open carpet champs there, and he won two-wheel mod the first weekend with the X-Ray. So, I
got to eat my words some more because I literally said he should drop down to stock, but he proves me wrong.
Then I think he got third at the Clash, right, in two-wheel mod.
Yeah.
So
he had a good. He's had a good turnout with that. I would say that X-Ray, maybe Ty would know, but X-Ray on the stock side, I don't think they have picked up anybody. I know they have Ryan Rivas. Where did Dustin Fox go? Did he go to Schumacher or
X-Ray?
Oh, so he did go to X-Ray?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they picked up a decent stock racer in Dustin, I would say, coming from Yokomo. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Yokomo. He was very good at the carpet championships as well. And then on the Schumacher's, excuse me?
He was excellent there.
He was.
Yeah.
And the early Yokomo there too, which was crazy. And two different color wheels. It was very good. That was a good race. Very good race. And then of course on the Schumacher side, we see Schumacher and X-Ray battling it out over there in Europe in the 10 scale side. I think they picked up a very good pick with Tom, like you said. Mayfield, I talked to him at SIC. He said he's not going to, he's not committed to a full schedule of 10 scale. Obviously, he said he'll get to races when he can. Obviously, he wants to go to the Worlds and all that type of stuff. But 8 scale is still his bread and butter. He can't explain it to me. So he'll be out there. You have Little Bump that's on the team. Feelong, of course, Brock Champlin. Big pickup with Doug. Not with Doug. With Tom. And then they got Nate Sutherland. But I truly, so what they tell me, because he ran mod at the Clash, is that they're letting him run mod to get ready for the Worlds. But I really think that Nate should run one more year of stock and like absolutely dominate it because he can. I think like he's one of those guys. I don't know how old he is, but I've watched him. He seems like to have the potential to have a great transition into the mod class at some point. But I think his value is in the stock class for Schumacher, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the other thing that he showed is how great, he was running the TLR cars all the way up through 2024, and he was dominating with the TLR cars. He was running on a completely different program, really. He was running TLR, Proline. He was running different electronics, and now he's like on a totally new program and really trying to relearn 3 or 4 things, just not the car. He's trying to learn, and he's jumping into mod. So you can tell I think at the moment he's probably needs to slow down a little bit, get his test practice days in, and because he's more than capable of running good, dominating stock and running really well in mod.
I agree with you, but you have to deal. I think one of the big things is when you come from dominating and you constantly get beat, which is going to happen. You're going to get beat so you can get better. And I think, like you said, with him learning all these new things and having a new chassis under, and he drove TLR for quite a long time. I just see his value right now immediately would have been in his stock class for Schumacher, in my opinion. That's my thoughts on it. That's what I think about it. And I forgot. Also, X-Ray picked up Tylen Henley, who's a very good stock driver as well.
Yeah,
and dabbled up. And dabbled up into some mod racing, and he's still young, so he's got potential. And they picked up CFT, who I thought was a good, solid pick for them. I know Cole Tollard, his career is kind of real life sickness, and probably realizing that I'm not really going to be able to make it as a pro RC driver to an extent to live the life that I want. Probably doing RC on the side to now, still on a good deal, still fast. So I think a very good, solid pickup, because Cole is a very gentle, kind guy that I've met. And he's like, when I saw him mad once, is at RCGP when his car blew up. And he's like, I said, so you're going to be out of the race? And I interviewed him. And he goes, nope, I'm not out of the race. I'm going to fix it and be back out there. And he was. And I was like, okay, CFT, man, good pickup. Good pickups for Schumacher. But I think X-Ray won this battle, in my opinion.
Cole is one of the great guys in this. The transition from Associated to TLR was something I think that he had really high hopes for, because he had been with Associated for so long. He was looking forward to working with Thomas over on TLR, who, Thomas worked for us at JConcepts, and he had a lot of relationships with our racers. Cole was one of them, and he was looking forward to that transition and working a little more with Thomas and getting more of I'm not going to say a higher position on the team, but it was a little bit higher, I think, than he was at on Associated. But it didn't work out that well. I mean, he still had good results. I think he was in the A main at the Worlds, and he had Silver State A mains and 8th scale. And I mean, we're talking about, when somebody's not, it didn't work out well, you're thinking, oh, they were in the D main. No, these guys were doing well. It's just like, it didn't work out, for other reasons. And I think that it really kind of hampered some of his growth as a racer, making that change and it not going forward as he thought it was, because at one point Thomas kind of had a great thing going with TLR. When he took over, he had a good thing going. He picked up several of these guys, and then it kind of made a change, or they made a change, and it kind of affected guys like Cole and other guys who just it didn't feel good anymore. And I think it was affecting his performance. He had to go and get not go and get a real job, but he was training to be a machinist anyway, in the downtime from his racing, and now he's just working more in his field of training, which is not really a bad thing either. I mean, we talk about pro RC racers, but the reality is there's only a handful that actually make enough money to live by yourself and live on your own with. A lot of this stuff is, we're hundreds of dollars a month, $1,000 a month. I mean, if you're talking about $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, that's not a
That's
lot
not
of money
sustainable.
in the grand scheme of things. Like, sure, it's great if you live with your parents and this and that, and you don't have any expenses and you can just spend it all. But if it's not a real job at that point, it's kind of it's a part-time gig. And other guys like Cole they're making a good decision while they're young, because he's a young guy too. I mean, all these guys are in their below mid-20s, and making a good decision, I think, and concentrating on some other things besides RC. Still doing RC for fun. He's picked up a good sponsor in Schumacher. He's still with us, and there's several guys in that position in the business right now, and I hope that they can manage both sides of the ball, I guess.
Yeah, and then of course you throw in a family into that, and then the ball starts to go to one side altogether.
Crazy,
but it is what it is. A great silly season. I mean, AE didn't really pick up anybody on the 10 scale side. They did pick up B Rose 8 scale. Cav will be driving an AE car via one up. You'll see how that goes. It's kind of weird seeing Cav. Wow, he looks even more skinny now. But
he's a great looking guy now compared to when he was a kid and got the nickname Pudge. He looks like a superstar, and when he got the nickname Pudge, it's because he ate at McDonald's every day and he was really Pudge, right? Like that was his name. And I mean, he's transitioned his appearance and look over the years. I mean, it hasn't just been the last couple of years, it's been a long time now, but obviously fantastic racer, having to jump around here. He's 38 years old. He's jumping around trying to find that home that can keep paying him, right? That's what.
I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, multi-time world champion, multi-time Reedy champion, 31-time national champion. But unfortunately, RC doesn't have a great retirement plan unless you put in a lot of work prior to it, and racing results aren't good enough no more. But he lives on to race another year with Associated, and I believe he's going to run a Mayako via Invisible Speed, is what I'm told. So I asked JQ. I said, I guess he says he can still drive. We just got to get him focused and get him tested, and doing stuff like that. So we shall see. I talked to Cav after the FCC, and he was a little bit off, and I probably realized he didn't have a really good FCC, right? So I probably realized maybe he got the news he was not going to be at Schumacher next year or something at that time. And he was just a little, he was a little bit off, but I'm a Cav fan, always have been. He's done great things in RC, and I can appreciate for that. I mean, he finished 5th at the Nationals last year.
And the Worlds.
And the world, I mean, he can still do things. It's just life, right? 2 kids, trying to make money, trying to survive, all that type of stuff. And these young guys are fast.
Number one, the young guys are extremely fast and they make it tough on you. But I would say another difficult part is for a racer like Cavallari and Jared Tebow. Man, ever since I've known them, all they've done is win. And I mean, I know Cavallari when he was 11, 12, 13 years old, Jared 12, 13 years old. The moment I met those guys, they were already winners, like on the track. Jared was an immediate winner. He was amazing as a young driver. 12, 13 years old. These guys were phenomenal racers. And all they've ever really done is win. And, Cavallari could get out of bed in 2005 and win 3 classes at the Nationals. Like it was just like nothing, he would do, 2-round TQs, 2 A mains, done. So 1 sewn up, onto the next one. That was the kind of ability and speed that he had in those days. And he still has great ability. You watch him drive. That's very precise, but it's just tougher, and you got to be dedicated. It's not only the raw talent, as you got to be dedicated, and you got to know your equipment. And a la Adam Drake, stays in the game because he's very dedicated. He's always out there, and he kind of knows what buttons to push, and that's where you have to get to I think in that generation. And I think the press release was worded nice for Ryan. He's got some friends there with Joe Pillars and Randy. They've always kind of taken care of each other. There's a little triangle there that they kind of take care of each other, and it's kind of continuing.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I'm happy to see Cav continuing on racing. I think we're going to move on from silly season, unless Will, you wanted to add something. Had a question for Jason.
No, it was definitely an interesting move for Cav. I think it's really good to see him back in the Associated. I know I'm biased, of course, but I think he's always had really great success with Associated. So even though he's not direct and he's through one up, I think it will be an interesting year to see how he does with the B7 platforms and the B74 and so on.
Very much so. Very much so. All right, we're going to touch on Clash of Champions really quick. Why? Because it's the first big race of the year. It happens right after New Year's. It's held at the Hoosier Hobbyplex up there in Indiana. RC Hoosier, RC Hobbyplex, the Henleys, great family, racing family, Talon Henleys, their son that races. I have stopped there. I stopped on my way up to Indiana. I watched a lot of this racing because silly season was so interesting. Obviously, Fend. Everybody wanted to see everybody in their new chassis. But we did see some great racing. We saw some, I thought, was some surprise moves with guys like Doug Leverrier, Nate as well, and Jeff Stackowitz. Even though Jeff told me he's going to go up to mod, because I always thought that Stacks was a stock guy. They moved up to the mod class. I didn't see the only one that did double duty was Talent, so he did some mod and stock racing. But what it's done, with those guys moving up, you still have a plethora of very fast spec racers who are good. Obviously, we have the Raymond twins. I think their twins, the Levi won, and then Chase came third with Henley in the middle and four-wheel drive stock. We saw some battles with Sammy Moran. Obviously, Dustin Fox was there. Kyle Go, Kyle Go's more like a veteran of the stock class now, but I think that's kind of where he belongs. So that looked good. So we have a lot of action brewing there in that stock class with some of these top stock guys. Because let's be real, like guys like Doug, Nate, and I would even say Sammy and those guys, Kyle, have kind of been at the top echelons of stock for quite some time now. So let's see what happens with guys like Doug and Nate as they move up. Stacks, maybe a little bit older than those guys. You know, he's like, I call him like the Dale Earnhardt of RC. Seriously, he just reminds me of Dale Earnhardt. If Dale Earnhardt was an RC car driver, it'd be Jeff Stackowitz or Stackiewicz. That's how he says his name.
I was really impressed with his mod driving at the Clash of Champions. He bumped up, I think, in both classes and made the mod main. I want to say that he might have even beat Cavallari in one of the.
Really?
Was Cavallari?
No, I think Cav went there.
No, I don't think he was.
He beat somebody. Maybe it was Tater. It was Tater.
It was Tater.
That's who it was. I think it was Tater. And so it shows you what he was capable of. And getting in the A main, sure, he might be a stock racer at heart. He's won several championships there, but I really like the side to him that he bumped up and was competitive, and he got into the main and he was mixing it up in the main with the mod guys. It was really nice to see, and obviously it'd be nice to see others follow suit. Yeah,
I mean, that's making that main is a good feat, I would say. Here we got some video of that main. This is Dakota Fan. This is the two-wheel drive A2 main. So this is where Fan kind of wrapped it up. I thought Brock was going to challenge him at some point. But
oh man, Brock was pushing so hard.
He was
phenomenal driver. Like, I mean, this Brock is he's definitely every bit as good as Dakota and Spencer at this point. And there's several guys. It's going to be an absolute war this year between all these guys, and then heading into the Worlds where you really don't have a handle on the track like you do here. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Also, Davey Bada having a good run in four-wheel drive too. He came third. He's Bada silently, like the silent assassin. He don't say much. We had him on the podcast. He made us say 20 words.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of quiet. He's kind of new to that side of things, but he's kind of like the guy that we know here in Florida, Julian is just as
Mhm.
quiet, and but they're deadly on the track. They're very good racers, and Davey, he's kind of come into his own the last year and a half, and now it's kind of up to him. He's got a great track to practice at and test, and he's got a lot of support this year from everybody, and now it's up to them. Can they do something with it to put themselves in that conversation with these kind of, the Brocks and the Dakotas and Spencers? That's where you got to get.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have to keep getting this type of results. I'm just looking through the results. Like I said, two of the main things were I was really impressed with the Raymond brothers doing well as they continue. I call them the dyad in the 10 scale world as they continue to get better under the tutelage of the great Matty G, I would say. That's good to see. Henley, kind of expect him to do well. This is his home track. He goes home with the winning two-wheel drive. Also, he took home that big paycheck. Well, he didn't take it home. He had to give it back to his parents, if I'm not mistaken. So he didn't get to make that money. But yeah, Fenn's debut, and then of course I have to give you, like we did talk about it, Rivkin's ability to come back after being on such the back foot and in qualifying and all the hype around him. So that gets me excited for the next couple of races that we're going to have her coming up, leading into the Worlds between these two. And then, of course, once we get to the World, you start throwing in some of the Europeans. It's going to be great.
Yeah, he was the associated savior. Spencer kind of turned the tide a little bit, and wasn't such a landslide for Dakota, and made it a little more interesting.
Absolutely. Will, anything to add about the Clash before we move quickly onto the Worlds, and then we're going to have a quick preview of the upcoming first race of the INS at Trackside.
No, I think we covered it. I think we covered it, to be honest.
I'm sorry, Will. I think you're going into it's 10 o'clock here in the UK, and I'm ready to go bed mode. But that's my fault because we're supposed to start a lot earlier. All right. So Worlds. Will, you're going to be there. Jason, obviously, you're going to be there. I really want to be there. It depends if we can get money to get the NNRC to get there. We have a 10-scale World on dirt, outdoors. Probably the last time we're going to see something like this for a long time. We haven't seen this since 2013.
China, I think.
China, 2017. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting times across the world. It looks like a good track. Rivkin's been there already. The Australians, they ain't bowing down either. So they're not trying to make it easier. Last time we was at a Worlds, we saw two Australians. Last time we had an 8-scale Worlds, sir. We saw two Australians make the final, which was Aaron Stringer. What's his name? Aaron Stringer? And Kyle McBride, obviously. McBride.
Yeah.
Oh, CJ Jellick also made the geez, some names that I haven't talked about in a while. Get back on track. Get back on track, Lefty. Real quick.
Got you excited.
Yeah, I know. Your thoughts on this coming up? A long way to travel for everybody.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's something that we need to get back over to Australia and run some 10 scale. As you mentioned, outdoors. It's pretty key to make this a little bit of a different experience. We can see here, we got on the screen, we got the 2-wheel mod A1 when, Spencer was over there running the Australian Nationals. And I watched every bit of this. I was actually kind of having fun watching this race. It reminded me of, some of the racing that I've done. And obviously Spencer was heavily challenged here by Ari Bakla and, Lachlan Donnelly, right?
Mm-hmm. That's his name.
They were extremely good. And, Lachlan actually won 4-wheel drive class. Spencer got second, and then Spencer TQ'd and won 2-wheel. But you can see the challenges of this track is just that it doesn't have the grip that we were just watching, and it's hard to see in the video because everybody makes it look a little better than it really is. But you're running pin style tires here outside, so you got the possibility of rain, which it did rain when they were there. And I'm sure it'll happen again. So anytime it rains, obviously the track gets wet. The conditions are different. You got to adjust on the fly with controlled tires. And what I kind of hope to see from this event is I hope to see that it motivates all of us to perhaps have some more outdoor 10 scale races, because I think we're going down such a rabbit hole right now in 10 scale where it's either a sealed or a glued track, or it's on carpet or AstroTurf, and the cars are moving so far towards that generation that it's going to be hard to come out of it.
Mhm.
And I would like to see this motivate all of us to do a little more of this, because I think we're missing out on a certain amount of racers and product that works well in these conditions that isn't as used as much today, at least in the US right now. And I would like to see this resurface a little bit. And I think with this vintage movement that's kind of going on, where everybody's just making vintage cars like crazy right now, 10 scale has kind of reached the point to where the cars are so built for high traction that I would like to see a little bit of a change. And I think that, maybe instead of what we've discussed about an 8 scale series, maybe the future is more in, maybe we just take the 10 scale ball and run with it and say, hey, maybe we'll do some outdoor stuff.
Mhm.
And maybe we do 3 races or something outdoors just to prove that we can do it again and use that type of product again. And maybe it'll relaunch the 10 scale buggy racing that people have seen in the past and they liked in the past. And this was exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. My travels in Florida have taken me to a couple outdoor dirt 10 scale races. Coral Springs. I've attended a race at is it New Reds? Not New Reds.
Newberry.
Newberry. So, and it's hard. It's hard to get people away from the beautiful, clean carpet. I'm a big proponent of carpet, and beautiful, clean carpet. I mean, I know you grew up on that, Will. So you like to get a chance to get out and play in the dirt, but I get it. But this looks good, and I'm really looking forward to watching this or being involved, being there. We should see how it goes. We will see how it goes. So interesting. Love World Year. Always ups the ante.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be, there's maybe some surprises to look forward to. You don't know what they're going to be until you really get there, but I'm pretty excited about this. I think I'm going to go over to the warm up race with Spencer I think it's in April. Paul it just happens to be the same weekend as P&B. I'd love to do P&B, but Paul's been doing it. I actually went in 24, but Paul's been doing it for many years, and I think I'll probably go to Australia and take this in with Spencer again when they do the warm up. And I keep kind of going back and forth if I want to drive or not, but because it's been a while, and every time I see a track like that, it makes me kind of want to drive a car. So I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth, but maybe I'll bring something just to drive.
Okay. Will, anything to add? We're gonna get into some INS stuff. Thanks.
I think it's more of a question for Jason. I kind of just want to see what your thoughts were on, like, the last few worlds seem like it's been very specialist. Like the Hoodie Arena was very low grip. Hobby Action again was, even though the track itself is normally in a traditional you'd run source, it was pretty low grip. And from what I understand, Australia is probably a little bit higher, but it seems like the last few worlds have kind of been, you almost have, it's like its own specialist event, and you kind of go into it where you can't really translate so much from normal racing. I guess, like, do you feel that the worlds should be more like a race that everyone's kind of done, or do you think it's good that it's so specialist and it's always something a bit kind of into the unknown, like, generally?
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and I agree that a lot of what we're doing continually and then what we go into at the Worlds are really two different conditions entirely. And it probably makes the Worlds that much harder. I think if we knew that we were going to race at, say, Hoosier, right, and the track is glued, I think a lot of the racers would be very in tune with that. They would not feel a lot of anxiety over it. They would feel good about the fact that, hey, I've been here, I know how to do this. I think these other tracks like Hobby Action with no sauce, controlled tire, fresh track was very hard. I think a lot of people had not the greatest experience there because of that. I think if they went to like maybe the Desert Classic, they would have a great experience. But I think the racers that actually went into the Worlds at Hobby Action were kind of like disappointed because they never got any grip that they were either being promoted that they would probably have, but they didn't. And I think that was, I mean, when the guys started practicing in two-wheel drive, it was so rough to watch, and it never really got that great. It was never that good. And I think it was a little bit of a disappointment for a lot of the racers there. They wanted to see that the grip come up. They wanted to see the tires work. They wanted to use the sauce to make the cars work better. And we didn't get quite 100% there because I think of some of that. And I think it would be nice. I kind of feel two ways about it in a way. Like I almost feel like it's nice that it is different because everyone kind of has to adjust on the fly, and maybe that's a true test you even more from that standpoint. But then from the realistic standpoint, it's kind of frustrating to go into something and do it and you don't know what to expect or you don't know what it's going to be like. And I think to me, that was the feeling I got from the racers when I was at that Worlds, that, man, I kind of wish it was more like the Desert Classic, not like this Worlds is. And they were kind of disappointed. And I didn't like the vibe that I got from the racers who were there, that it was kind of like from the middle of the pack down. The guys at the top, of course, they were kind of finding their way. But from the middle of the pack down, I kind of felt like they were all like, man, was this really worth it? Was it a great experience? And I think had it been just more like the Desert Classic, they all would have been happier. But, but maybe the promotional opportunity of a track like Australia being outdoors and doing this different with pin tires, I think is a positive. I think the average racer that tunes in, what I think is going to be said over and over in all these chats and all this is how it should be. This is how it should be. That's all anybody's going to say in the chat the whole time. It's just going to be like, this is what I remember. This is the best. This is the greatest. This is how racing should be. Screw this carpet. Screw this glued track stuff. They're just going to be like, this is the way it should be. And I think that's what you're going to see over and over when that Worlds is happening. But like you said, I think it is strange that we're going to all these races and it's so different from what you're normally accustomed to. I think it might affect the turnout. What could happen is racers who are afraid, or they're just like, look, I don't run on this. Like this is kind of a waste of my time and my money and energy. I don't run on this kind of thing. And I just kind of I don't want to be just another guy out there. I want to feel like I'm, or another racer in the mix. I want to feel like I'm competitive, and maybe they'll not necessarily chicken out, but maybe they'll just kind of, I'll back myself off of this one a little bit. And maybe you're not giving the opportunity for the best turnout that you can get by having the surface unusual for the era. And, but we'll see. I think that, to your point, I think that's a great point, that I'm really surprised we haven't had a carpet one, carpet world since, we did the turf one at Utabi in 2015, and we haven't had a carpet one.
Yeah, I'm shocked. All right. Bill, anything else before we segue into some INS chat?
No, I think everything Jason said there, I think was pretty much bang on. I mean, I was at Hobby Action, so I remember just seeing Matty G's car in round one just spinning out, and all of us were like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a long week. So,
yes.
Yeah.
But
maybe rules have to be adapted to the conditions to provide for a more pleasurable experience, I guess, or a more memorable experience.
What really comes into play at these races, when these conditions happen and the way they swap the heats around is the speed of the track. You know, in my racing day, we did all my worlds that I did well at, I guess you could say, were outdoors. And there was always the time to be on the track that was better than others. And there was a pretty substantial advantage to being on the track at a certain time to achieve the best time over others, you know, because at a Worlds, you have maybe, you know, let's just call it, I don't remember what they had. Did they have 12 heats at Hobby Action or 13, something like that?
I think it was like 13, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you can be one of 13. If you're one of 13 on an outdoor track, when you start the first one to the last one, the track is dramatically different. And then they swap the heats around, which is in hopes to equalize some of that. But there's guys that kind of get caught in the middle. There's guys that get caught one way or another. That's sort of what we see at these 10 scale worlds that are really kind of change the results. That's where you get those surprises where someone like, you know, that's really good, but not the favorite could get a TQ run because they were in a little favorable qualifier. It happened at Hobby Action. It's happened at a lot of other worlds. And I think we're going to see some more of that in Australia because there's going to be times the track is better than others. And that's what we fight outdoors in 10 scale, especially 2-wheel drive, because it is so, I mean, the cars are so traction dependent, and you add the smallest percentage of traction to the track and, you know, you're 5 seconds faster than somebody else that's a similar skill level. And that's a world of difference in results.
Awesome. It's going to be interesting. Outdoor racing, whole different element. All right. I think that's a great segue because we're talking about the Worlds, and that's a spec tire, which I'm a great proponent of. But the INS is open tire on all levels now. I think you changed the rule there was some spec tires at some point in some of the classes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we have. We've kind of dabbled in it over the years. We've ran some spec tires. We went away from it. We started the carpet and turf one. We had spec tires, and then we went away from it. And our turnouts were better without spec tires than they were with tires or with control tires. So, and it was a lot of work for the track to do it. They had the potential to make a little money from the tires because everyone was on the same thing, but it was also a lot of work for them. And we had less racers commit to the race because they couldn't support their sponsors. So they were like, well, I'm not going to come in. And I say at the time, they say they ran for Pro Line. They're like, well, I'm not going to come in and buy a bunch of JConcepts tires just so I can run one race when I could just run my normal stuff. So our turnouts were better when we went to open tire. And I think what it did for us is it made it a true competition in our game. And, you know, it was, so it was not only were you competing with the cars, you're competing with the tires and, you know, like we generally do and in winners and losers and who looked good that weekend and who didn't. And so personally, you know, it's worked out for us to have it as open. I think it's been more inviting to all the manufacturers to come and race. And ultimately what we want is what's good for the track. And if they can get a good turnout and still offer equipment and tire sales for them to go along with it, then it's been successful.
Okay. So we have seen coming into 2025, Hot Race, they've come onto the 10 scale market with their slicks and carpet tires. Nicola was at the FCC race. He was also, he wasn't at the Clash, but they've signed some good drivers like Chase Lemieux, Aiden Horn. They got Una Hotman over there in Europe. We see ProMotion. Obviously, we have guys like Tater. TZO has got some slick tires coming as well. I assume the slick tires are the easiest ones to make because it's pretty much, you know, you got to find the right carcass. And I'm asking, I don't know how, but it seems like everybody goes for slick tires right away. How do you feel about the competition? I mean, I know it's kind of weird, right? Because you're a tire company, accessory brand tire company that has a race, but then also you have to allow other tire competitors to be involved in it as well.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, back when, going back to earlier when I was talking about, Ty Tessman had ran our series and he had won on our series at the time he was racing for Proline, and it was like, I think it kind of helped in a sense that, at least in my opinion, the way I thought about it was there was a platform for him to have success for his sponsors.
Mhm.
And the platform was these events and doing these races. And I think that it also showed that if you win or if you show up and you have a great product with great racers and you can do well, it's something that's a marketing tool for you. Sure, we want to win, but the reality is you can't win every single time. You can't win every race, no matter how many great and drivers you have. You're not going to win every time. It's just not how it works. And we got to accept that there's going to be times that you're not going to win, and that's just the way that it works. But for us, it's a competition transition. For many years, our main competition was Proline. We were actually in the game a little bit before AKA started, but then they were a big player as well. So that was our main competition throughout the 2000s. Here is first was Proline and then AKA, and that battle with three of us was pretty hot and heavy. And I think now we have different competitors than we have in the past. And I think that, they're trying to round up their group of drivers, which I've been a proponent of, is if you're going to be involved in the business, then you got to pick your crew, you got to set up your team, and then you compete. And I think for many situations here where, a few years ago, we kind of had to draw a line in the sand and we had to say, hey, we don't want all these sponsors that conflict each other. And we had a situation where everybody was wanting to be sponsored by all these multiple companies. The products were running over the top of each other. And it was like, hey, this, from a business standpoint, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's like, you're either pick a team. It's like, I don't care which one it is, pick a team and support that one. If you want it to be JConcepts, Proline, AKA, if you want to be TZO, Promotion, Raw Speed, whatever, pick the one you're going to run for and support that brand top to bottom. Don't try to have 5 sponsors that are all essentially fighting for the same thing. It just doesn't make any sense. That's how I was taught the business. When we got in the game, we were treated very poorly. People didn't, the Prolines of the world and all them, they didn't like us being around. They directed their drivers. They said, hey, this is how it's going to work. We're going to separate it. And, you can't run JConcepts bodies and Proline tires, and you can't run these bearings and and put all this together. So what we really have now is an alignment of other companies that are getting into the game, and they have to, work and sign their own drivers and work through it.
Like you guys had to.
From everybody else, the way everybody else did. And I think that it's kind of made it, in my opinion, it's made it a little easier, because I know that, you're going to have, in a sense, we're not really enemies, but you're competitors. And it really makes the line clean, right? It's like, we're not trying to be buddies because we share some drivers. We just, we know where we stand. It's like, hey, we understand that you're out here, you're going to be competitors and everything, but we don't have to pretend to be something that we're not. And I think that, some of these guys got mad at us because we wanted to make this distinction. We wanted to say, look, either support them, you support us, or whatever. People were mad at us for that. But I think all that we've proved is that we were right in terms of that was the direction it was going. And all we did is we saw it ahead of time and just said, okay, this is what's going to happen. We can see it coming. And we just went ahead and created the separation and made it a little bit ahead of time. And I think that's what we're seeing now is everyone's trying to stack and set up their own team, which I think is fine. If you're going to going to set up these drivers and you're going to offer them a deal and you get behind them, and that's perfectly fine. You know, I think it's what this racing is all about. And obviously these are all of people that can, they're going to take wins throughout the season, whether it's locally or nationally or on a world kind of level. But that is the game. You don't win all the time. You can't win every race. And there are going to be competitors working hard to be in the mix, beat anybody. And it's not just us. There's other people that you're trying to beat too. But I think that the part that I don't think that everybody 100% understands is these drivers are also looking for a deal, right? The fact with this whole the TLR thing that happened, it's essentially the same thing happened to Proline and AKA. So they kind of let go of their drivers that they were that their travel team on their paid team. So all those guys looked for a similar place to go. They wanted to get paid, right? So if there's these other companies out there that are willing to pay them, that's where they went. So it's not like not everybody has a ton of choices. It's, hey, somebody offered me something that can kind of keep my racing going as a paid racer, and they jumped over there. And now it's their responsibility to try to prove they can do it with that product as well. And I would say that all of them been very aggressive between, like you said, Hot Race, between the promotions, the TZOs, and even Raw Speed, who came in kind of silent with the Ryan Lutz thing, but silently might have been the best move.
He had a great deal. He had a great SIC. Great SIC.
Silently, maybe the best deal was to get the Ryan Lutz on the team. But yeah, like you said, the slick tires, that's what we're using so often. I think it's easy for somebody to start there. And these days it's much easier to start in this business than it ever has been. But it's also just as hard, if not harder, to be successful. If you have money and you're willing to pay drivers and you're going to give product away, you can have a team. Anybody can have, products and a team and try to get results as long as you're just going to give money out. So people can get started today if you have those resources.
It's easy.
If you can,
they email you and tell you how to get started.
You can get started if you want, but it is hard to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the next step is. And are you do you have a business? Do you have a place? Do you have a warehouse? Do you have employees? Do you pay, you got to pay insurance and taxes, and, it only gets harder as you move along because your expenses go up. So that's where the pro lines and all of them have been through it. They were the longest in the business, and they've been through all these things, and they've done it, every which way you can at this point. And there's some others giving a good go right now, and they're trying to do it on the team driver and the racer front, and giving out, discount rides and full sponsorships and paying drivers. So that's the hard push, and so you got to get them out there and see how they can do. And I'm sure we'll suffer some blows here and there to them, but that is the game.
Absolutely. Winning on the track, right? Will, you had a question, and then we're going to move on to these INS dates, have a quick look at trackside, and I think we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, I guess I had a question actually written down. I guess with Brock coming to Schumacher in the last few years, I guess JConcepts, I guess you could kind of say, is always they Associated and JC have always kind of been hand in hand, but it seems like you guys kind of start to just branch out a little bit. I guess now the expansion of Schumacher, like we've been loving that here in the UK, and also the X-ray stuff. I guess what are your thoughts on that? And yeah,
I think that we have a because of my relationship with Associated over the years as a racer, our product was kind of tied to the Associated cars because of that. And I think over the years, when we started with Ryan Mayfield, he was an Associated driver. So it wasn't so much about my relationship anymore. It was about, his relationship and our racers' relationship to the chassis company they race for, and it happened to be Associated. And so, and here, the Associated product was selling well, right? The 10 scale stuff sells well. Even to some extent, the 8 scale does well. So it makes sense for our product, for us to make product for vehicles that sell well. So that's the tie-in, I think, is from my past being a racer, being on Associated as a racer, a travel team pro racer, to our racers like Mayfield and Spencer and even Cavallari at a time. And, there have been others. They were racing for Associated, and we kind of met at a very good position and a good place where we could provide the accessories up to a point. They were providing the cars, and we had a nice working relationship there. But as we've gotten more racers on more teams, like I want to say that one of the big ones was, when Dakota started racing for us. We had others before that, like Jorn Norman and all these racers like him, who were Durango and others. We made those relationships work well with product and bodies and everything else. But we kind of kept moving along. We got Dakota on the team as a TLR driver. They allowed him to use all of our product, which we're totally appreciative that they were very flexible with us with Dakota. And then we could concentrate more on having a more well-rounded lineup for not only the Associated, but then the TLR. And then kind of came the transition with Brock going from Associated to Schumacher. We wanted to make sure that he was covered. And a lot of these racers that we've gotten on the team, as they have grown in their careers and maybe moved to a new chassis, it's allowed us to expand and be more aggressive with those chassis also. And I think that's where we are with the Schumacher equipment. Is we have a lot of shared interests with racers now. If it's not Michael Orlowski or Brock or Tom Rinnernick, and so we have a lot of shared interests there. And it's we've concentrated on having all of our popular bodies available, for these different makes and models, the bearings, the turnbuckles. To me, my vision is, when I see a JConcepts equipped vehicle, it's the tires, the wheels, the body, the wing. Then we go turnbuckles, screws, bearings. That's a JConcepts equipped vehicle to me. And we're trying to have that available for not only the Associated, but now it's moving into X-Ray and Schumacher. And I think we're having some more shared drivers and shared interests, and the common goals that these guys are supported by us individually, but then it's sort of a collective thing once you get to the race. And we've had some great relationships over the years, not only with Associated, but now with even Schumacher, and also TLR. TLR has worked with us with Dakota quite a bit in the past, and we've gotten had a lot of great working relationships with them. And now with the Schumacher, learning from some of their designers and engineers, about some of their products, and they've incorporated our body into their kits, which has been nice. And I think that it's given the kits a little bit of a better look. and a little bit, maybe even a better performance. And I think it's helped the appearance of their product in the eyes of at least me anyway. But and then X-ray, I think we're working on that. That's probably it was probably a little bit of a tough hurdle working with Dakota and X-ray to make that a complete package. But hopefully that they see that we go to these events and we promote him as an X-ray and a JConcepts driver, and we're also working on giving him things that he can use to his advantage. And I think for them having the car win and do well, I think is a big thing, and people seeing that also, because not everybody just wants to build these things straight out of the box. They like to customize it, and that's kind of where we come in with these customizable parts. And I think if you're able to free yourself up a little bit at one of these companies, allow a little bit of freedom for the drivers to individualize it a little bit, then I think it makes it more appealing to everybody, because they're like, oh, well, there are options for this thing out there, and that gives me the ability to individualize it for themselves. And I think that's what we're trying to bring now for some of the X-ray. We got the new body for the 8 scale. We got 2-wheel and 4-wheel, and we got turnbuckles, and I just sent Dakota some bearings. And so it's exciting to be on board with multiple manufacturers like this that have been supportive to us. And we try to give back in terms of the promotion side of it. We cover these races. We spend a lot to go and to participate, not only ourselves, whether we drive or fly, send in product, send in media people, or we do the media ourselves. I hope that they appreciate that they're getting something out of it also.
Absolutely. You guys definitely put a lot of money back into racing via track sponsorship, race sponsorship, as well as media outlets. All right. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to have a quick look at some of these dates. Obviously, this is the 2025 INS dates. We have the Winter Dirt Indoor Nationals coming up February 7th to 9th, 2025 at Trackside Hobbies, Brookfield, Wisconsin. I'll be at that. Then we go to the Spring Carpet Indoor Nationals, May 2nd to 4th at RC1 Racing, which is also up north. You're probably going to see a lot of Canadians come down from that to that as well. Macomb Township, Michigan. The Midsummer Carpet Indoor Nationals, June 6th to 8th at Island Speedway at Muscatine, Idaho. Is it Idaho? Yeah, it's Idaho. That's
Iowa.
The one that Iowa. See, I get it confused. Yep. That's the one that Tom told me to come to because that's his home track, if I can make it. And with the late summer.
Again, go ahead. Keep going.
Tom Rinnenek said come to Island Speedway if I come to any one of them. Late Summer Dirt Indoor Nationals, August 1st to 2nd at the Hobbytown Hobbyplex, Omaha, which is one of your 2 dirt races up there. They have great races up there. Alex Sturgeon does a good job up there. And then, of course, the Indoor National Finals, Dirt Surface, Glued Surface at Hoosiers RC Hobbyplex in New Albany, happening October 17th to 19th. And so you have 2 drops, which is great because I think drops are important for races because not everybody can make it. So you have to get best 3 out of 5. Same kind of thing I'm trying to do with Danny Paz. We're on a best 4 out of 7 right now in our grudge matches. It's really,
but he's up, right? He's up.
Technically, he's up, but
okay.
Really, with ethics, he's not. Because he cheated on the first one. All right, let's have a quick look at the Trackside Hobbies. Ty, if you could bring up maybe some coverage from Trackside Hobbies. I believe this used to be Scotty's track back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, or was it?
It has a huge history. Scotty is one of the owners. I don't think he was the original owner.
Okay.
And what you're going to be, I don't want to completely cut you off, but
go ahead.
This is a much smaller facility than being at Hoosier. And right away, you're going to be on top of everybody constantly. And you're going to meet so many people here because whether you're in the driver's line, that's, if there's practice, or I don't exactly remember how we're doing it at the moment, but I usually meet a lot of people if I'm in line racing or practicing, but just the pits are close together. Everybody is packed into this building, and for whatever reason, the racers absolutely love this place. There's something about this. It's a smaller track. When you get there, you'll understand the way it's kind of built and the way it's constructed. But the racers love this track, and they always get a good turnout at their events. They build a nice track. They build those berms in the corners, the candy cane striped concrete. They build those for each track, and I think this is it's one of the stops that the drivers look forward to, and it just has a different. The vibe is so different. People beat on the wall during the races. That back straightaway wall, the locals, when there's good racing, they beat on the wall for some reason, and it's just the whole atmosphere is totally different in this building. The announcers like right on top of the track there in the back. It's very unique, and for some reason, the racers really like it. And as you said, many owners. Scotty was an owner, turned it over to Jamie Tenney's many years ago already, but a great place to visit. And Chase Lemieux's home track.
Really? Did not know that.
This is Chase Lemieux's home track. His dad's Motive company, Paul, their Motive is actually in the same building. His business operates out of trackside, and it's a really unique older building. It has a downstairs basement. Everybody likes it. It's
really,
yeah, everybody likes being there, but it's tight in there, and you're gonna get to meet everybody probably 2 or 3 times at least.
I will. That happens all the time anyway. The dirt looks a little different. It looks very dark. It looks like that chocolate cake at Neo to me. That's what it looks like.
A lot of the racers really prefer this dirt because it's not glued, but you still run slick tires, but it's not glued, and you still have the good grip, but you have a little bit of there's some drivability left in the vehicle. You're not so on edge, and it's a little easier to drive because it doesn't have that glue on it. But you're still on slicks. You got good grip, but you got a little bit of slide still. You can set up the car a little differently. You can land a little out of shape, and it's not as deadly as say it would be at Hoosier if you're landing too crooked or sideways. So
it has that give. So the tires give and it lands. Not like this one. Do we use saucer or I don't know the rules?
Yeah, they sauce. Yeah.
So it's open sauce for anybody. Any type of sauce. Okay.
Yeah. And and the racers are kind of narrowed down these days. I think it's really 2 or 3 sauces I think that everybody really kind of gravitates towards, and racers are pretty open these days. They kind of share, they'll share sauce, from one pit to another. I mean, I've seen Mayfield and Ty Tessman share tire sauce. I mean, it's like, the racers are pretty good about it these days. And, I think, there's a couple that I think hold it a little closer to their chest, but for the most part, we have a pretty good group that wants to kind of win it.
I would say safe to say that anybody that's running Lemieux's traction compound is going to be faster, because I had no idea that this is the same track, and I'm sure he's had countless hours of testing that stuff out there. But that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? This is a platform. We have this series. It's a platform for these racers to show what they got and to show what you can do, and that's what it's about. And I think that's where you bring in all the guys and you lay the cards on the table, see what you got, and you try not to dwell on it one way or another, and you move on to the next one. And so that's kind of where we are. I mean, we're going to have probably most of the guys that were at the Clash of Champions here. So that was essentially a preview of this race. It's going to be most of the same players. Like you mentioned, the guys that bumped into Mod, there's going to be some stock heroes.
It's going to be good. This is my second time outside. But the only I did see some OCRC dirt racing, like a Wednesday night club race. And I've been to Masters twice, but this is my next big race where it's been on dirt to an extent. So I'm actually excited about it. I love the curbing. I think it makes for better racing every time. I think any track that has a concrete curbing just makes for such better racing. I always hate when cars get snagged by pipes. I've already had people reach out to me like, are you coming? Are you coming? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. So I'm uber excited. And it's going to be cold. I've never been to Wisconsin. I'm looking forward to the road trip up there and meeting new people, right? So I'm really excited about that. I don't know, Will. You should come over. It's like England up there. Probably cooler than England.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to at least do an INS at some point. The one here that we're just looking at, it literally falls right in the middle of EOS and then MK. Right. So it'll be like a triple header, but I mean, it's definitely on the cards to do an INS, like 100%. Just got to work it into the calendar.
Yeah, three dirt races, 2 carpet races. Interesting. If I calculate it right, or if I'm that much of an idiot. Yep. There we go. No races in Florida. Oh, that's right, because you're keeping everything central. So everybody gets around to that area. Got you covered. So I just wanted to go real quick. So last year, Spencer Rifkin, Chase Lemieux, Ryan Cavallari, your top 3 at this race in 2-wheel drive mod. And in, let's see. Oh, did I go too far back? In mod and 4-wheel drive mod, we had Spencer Rifkin, Cole Tyler, and Tom Rindernick, your top 3. And I would not be surprised if that's pretty similar when we go here this upcoming in 2 weeks. 2 weeks time. 3.5 weeks time.
I think I'm not sure. I haven't confirmed with Dakota if he's going yet or not. I'm not
I don't
sure.
think he is.
Yeah,
I did interview him prior to this. People were hurt before this, and I talked to him. He said he just because he's going to the NS
both races.
Yes, to get ready for DNC, for the dirt races. And of course, he has a little bun in the oven that's coming soon. So, unfortunate that he's not going to be there. I really wanted him to be there to come and watch it and just watch him with that on his new car. But I think we're in store for some good racing. Everybody's going to want to be hyped up after the Clash. Guys who felt like they might have not had the racing that the results that they wanted at the Clash. We might see some guy who, hey, you know me, I'm always looking for the drama. It might be a guy that takes a guy out because he got taken out at the Clash. That's why I love all this type of stuff. So I'm really excited to get up there and see the new people up there trackside. I guess my question would be to you, out of these 3 races, I don't know if you'll be attending most of them. I know Damon might be attending most of these as well, which is a good addition as well. Maybe we can touch on that. But which one of these races is probably the one that gets attended by most people?
I want to say our best. I think the very first one last year was definitely one of the biggest turnout wise, and then probably the last one at Hoosier. And I think Hoosier has a little bit of a slight edge because of everyone's really loving that track right now. They're really gravitating there. Just because I think of the surface or the pits or Eddie and Angie, they're really feeling at home there, I think is really the right word. And that, I think it's bringing a lot of consistent entries. There will be a lot of races there this year between the Clash of Champions. They got the Nationals. There's a vintage Clash of Champions and our race in October. So it's very possible we could have a little burnout towards the end of people just not wanting to go there for the 3rd or 4th time. But I still expect it to be probably the most competitive one will be the last one. The first one, I think, will set the stage, right? Who can get off to a good start? I want to say Brock did the team associated race there and he performed really well. I think he won both classes. And that was a big win for him. He hasn't done his best on that track and surface over the years, and he was able to conquer it. He was able to conquer it there pretty well during the team associated race. So I expect Brock to come back. Spencer was the winner last year. And then we're going to have Chase Lemieux being, hyped up. He's got his stuff dialed in. slightly new equipment and sponsors. So he's going to be, of course, in the mix. And then Tom Rinderneck and Aiden Horn. So that's probably that's your group. That's your group. And then can you get in the mix with them is the question. And then stir it up. So I would say the first race and the last race are two of the most exciting. I want to say the location I really like when you get to the track is the Iowa. I like that carpet track there in Iowa because I don't think and nobody really understands when I say this, but when I used to watch movies when I was a kid and like there was like a rich kid that would like tell his parents what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That track reminds me is like if you were a rich kid and you told your parents to build you an RC track. That's what it kind of reminds me of. The way it's painted, it's kind of like if you were a little, they have a pink room, a blue room, they got these different room colors, and the upstairs is beautiful because the way it overlooks the track, the way this building was built, where there's really no poles in it, it's got a round ceiling. I don't even think anybody would know how to build a building like this anymore. The way this building is built. But there's a lot of people take photos from up there all the time, and you can see the way the trusses are built and the way the building is set up. But yeah, to me, it's like if you were this rich kid in the 80s and you're told in the movies and you're like, I want an RC track, and they build you this thing, and
it looks great from the video.
Yeah, it's really neat, and it's a really old building. They used to build. The guy told me they actually built toys there. Many, many years ago. I don't know if this was in the 50s or 60s, and the guy is a collector, Tom, who's inside of his shop there. He's kind of a collector, and he has some of the toys that were built in this track and are built in that building in the old days. And but yeah, it's really, you feel good in there. Like it has a nice vibe, and I really enjoy being there. And that's one of the last races I actually raced a year or so ago. I raced there and had a good time. Omaha's Omaha. Probably the biggest 10 scale track, tallest driver stand. Racers that are there all the time like it. Guys that come in have never been there. They don't understand how they drive with such a high driver stand. For me, was normal because I was an outdoor track guy. So
right. That don't make. I got it now.
Yeah, so when you go to these tracks, that's one of the biggest things when you're at a track like a trackside. When you're on the driver's stand, if a turn marshal stands up, it's part of the track in a way. It hides turns. So these racers that have a natural feel for, getting blinded occasionally or the turn marshals moving, because that's what you're looking at that when, because you'll see when you're there that this track, it's on the smaller side, but it's the quintessential, to me, it's like the quintessential 10 scale indoor track. But yeah, you go to Omaha, it's a completely different experience. You're looking down on the track, the turn marshals, it doesn't really matter where they are because you got all this visibility, but you're getting sort of that crow's eye view of it, the bird's eye view of it, as opposed to that straight across view that a lot of these indoor tracks have. So
I never thought of that.
It's always a different experience, and that's why doing these things I think is helpful to a racer, because you have to adjust. You have to say, man, this is not what I'm used to, and you learn by the time it's over where you want to stand, where getting around the turn marshals, driving with these distractions. When the track is that close to you, you can hear everybody talking, you can hear the turn marshals, and you have to kind of work with those distractions as a racer. And there's always something to learn.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely very much looking forward to going over there. Points racing, man. I love it. We talked about Spencer Rifkin coming back and taking that win in four-wheel drive and fighting hard and all that type of stuff. But sometimes you just got to fight hard to get some points, good points. You don't necessarily have to win.
Yeah.
And I think if we can keep that attitude going into these races, my goal is to see that fifth race come down to that final A2, A3 main. I mean, it's hard to plan that out. It's hard to make that happen, but certain challenges and whatnot coming up to these guys, and just everybody trying to win it. So hopefully everybody comes out of the gate swinging and fast.
They will.
And, like I said, there's guys that are probably going to, by the time we get going, it's going to be just over a month over the clash. So guys that had a month to sit there and stew about what they did wrong or how good they did. And I am really looking forward to seeing these guys do some battle in this. It looks like a beautiful track, man. I'm super excited to get up there and be a part of this and get this INS kicked off. And hopefully we get some, you know me, if it's going to be dramatic, I'm going to be there because I want to see it all. But I would look forward mostly for good racing, good competitive racing, not just for the first and not just in the pro class, but in all classes. And the pro guys are there to put on a show for us. That's how I look at it. And I expect them to put a show on for us and do well. And they're going to want to do good too. So it's going to be interesting.
What I see here, there's usually, there's a lot of close races, stuff like you saw at the Clash of Champions with Dakota and Spencer there at the end of that 4-wheel main and stuff like that. But you'll see a lot of these go to the last lap because the tendency of the track is that it's tight and it's hard to really gain huge advantages over others. So qualifying, of course, is important, but then being able to maintain your position. And you definitely, I see more than my racing days anyway, was there's a lot of sportsmanship these days when the guys hit each other. You will see people wait. You'll see racers wait more often than not. There are a few like bump and goes and, get out of here. And but for the most part, the drivers are pretty good. And you're going to see a lot of that, though. You're going to see that split-second decision. Do they want to let him go? Do they not want to let him go? If they touch him or take him out. So, yeah, you're going to have it'll be a good experience.
Yeah, I'm excited. How about you, Will? How you feel about it going into 2025? You're probably going to be in pretty much a good bit of these recap shows with us. So, as the 10 scale chairman that you've been upgraded to, this is your bread and butter, man. This is where I met you. This is what you're into, and you're getting all American on us. You're all about dirt.
Well, I definitely think with all the silly season and everyone getting into their new equipment and with it being a Worlds year, I think it's going to be a really interesting one. Like I think especially, I know we keep hounding about Dakota, but I think Dakota's going to be really strong this year. And just the same like with Spencer and Brock, those guys are always at the top. And I think there's so many other guys coming up, like Chase Lemieux, Tom, Davey Batter. I think it's going to be, there's like a lot of wild cards as well. So I think this year's going to be a really interesting one.
Absolutely. And we're going to be there to watch it all and talk all about it on our recaps. We're going to aim to do some recaps after each one of them. And that's the goal, and get really into it. We'll probably have Damon Barkowitz coming on here, who used to be your protege. A lot of people that may not know who he was. I used to listen to him to talk about him on the Radio Impalm podcast back in the day. Good to see him out, full of energy. Like I saw him at FCC. He didn't stop. He put his hands on everything. So I look forward to actually picking his brain and talking to him about this type of stuff. I'm sure I'll be there, but hey, we're taking notes. Great addition to the team, I think, with Damon, and I think you're happy to have him back, your protege. Well, he's a man now, but yeah. And hopefully get to see him do some racing.
Yeah, I've kind of told him that if he wants to race, we can get the equipment and give it a shot. Of course, I'm kind of, you're split because it's hard to get racers to go and be a representative at these races because they all want to race. And then once you get engaged in the racing, you really forget while you're there to be the representative or promoter or help everybody else. So it's hard to do both. So I that's why I don't race these events, because I try to take it in from everybody else's perspective, not my own. And so, I've raced a ton. I've raced plenty. I don't have to do all this stuff. And I go to try to support our guys and try to be, recognize things and make notes for down the road. And we're trying to help Damon get up to speed with doing that same type of thing. If he does want to race, we can get the equipment, and then, if Paul and I are there, and we can split some of the duties, and we can put him out on the track. And it's tough because, he's sitting there at these races, and he would be one of the faster guys. He has the talent, he has the ability to race at a high level. He's probably a guy that would be, and modified, he'd probably be top of the B, bottom of the A kind of racer. If he raced in stock and had the practice, he would probably be near the top in the stock classes. He has a ton of skills. And he's still a young guy, but trying to get out there and help him see this from our side of things too, and be a representative is good. And I'm sure we'll see him race eventually, and give it a shot and see what it's like again. I mean, I saw him drive a car after FCC. I think he drove Davey Bada's car at FCC after the race, and I was like, ooh, he actually looks pretty good. Like you could tell like right away, like, okay, he knows how to jump, he knows how to do all this stuff, he's already whipping the car where he needs to do it, and it's like, all right, it's like, yeah, he's pretty good at this still.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to give a big shout out before we go on. We finish this up. Overall winners last year: Brock Champlin won 2-wheel drive, Tom Rindernick won 4-wheel drive, Nate Sullivan won 2-wheel drive, Chase Raymond won 4-wheel drive. But also Tom finished second in 2-wheel drive with Chase right behind him. Davey Bada finished second in 4-wheel drive with Brock and Doug Leverrier, who's moved up, and Nate. So I wonder if they're going to run mod at this race. We'll see. And that opens up the door for the Raymond brothers. Chase Raymond Levi came third in stock 2-wheel drive, Doug second, and Nate third in stock 4-wheel drive as well. So lots of pedigree in those results right there. And we're looking forward to seeing that similar type of pedigree in the results in 2025, and some exciting racing. I'm pumped to come up to trackside. By the time you guys are listening to this, we'll probably be there. So, hey, once again, Jason, thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it. Will, did you have anything to say to Jason before we left? Because you become the silent chairman.
No, I guess just thanks for being on the show. Like, it was really great I unfortunately didn't really get to talk to you at any of the Worlds, but hopefully in Australia I'll be able to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be cool that if you can go out and do that race again. And yeah, I look forward to touching base. And if you need anything from me, let me know. Appreciate you doing this.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason. We look forward to seeing you, I guess, at trackside. We look forward to seeing everybody at trackside, and then of course I'll be there calling all the action and getting all the nitty gritty, so we can talk all about it on our first INS recap show after trackside. We greatly appreciate it. I want to say a big shout out to all these sponsors that make the INS possible. Of course, a big shout out to JConcepts, A-Main Hobbies, Hobby Wing, Schumacher, Exalt, Team Associated, Reedy, and of course, all my guys there and good teammates at Elite RC Productions. My name is Lefty the Great. That's Will I Am. And of course, Jason Ruona, our guest this weekend. This is our first INS preview show. We hope to see you all there and get ready for some exciting battles and hopefully a very exciting points chase that we're looking to hype up and follow in 2025. We'll see you all at the races. I would say Nitro's the glory, but this is all about 10 scale, and that's building the skills. Lefty and the crew were out. We'll see you guys later. Thank you.